remember sitting beside his bedside looking up at the IV bag and seeing linezolid, the drug that he worked on, and it just struck me at the time how powerful that was. The fact that I could stay home with my son and give him a strong start to life and get my job back. That's economic security for a woman, for a family, not any job, but a job I'm trained to do. And that I could use that job to develop something great and amazing that actually impacted my father 20 years later. I believe that's the power of government.
Yes.
That government policy can help people to achieve their full potential in their life. And that's why I do what I do.
Hello everyone, I am Prasad Anglari, a Bothell City Council member and an entrepreneur. Let's think practical how we can build stronger communities and stronger country. Our guest today is Washington State Senator Dr. Vandana Slatter, who represent Washington State's 48th Legislative District. We call it as LD48 as well, which includes cities like Bellevue, Redmond, Kirkland, Clyde Hill, Medina, Arrow Point, and Hunts Point. She serves as a Vice Chair of the Senate Environment, Energy and Technology Committee and Vice Chair of the Health and Long-Term Care Committee, while also serving on Higher Education and Workforce Development Committee. Before joining the Senate in 2025, Dr. Slatter served 4 terms in the Washington State House and previously served on the Bellevue City Council as well. With a background as a licensed pharmacist and a clinical scientist, she has spent her career advancing healthcare, education, climate action, workforce development, and science-based public policy. Vandana is known for expanding access to care through the Washington Health Corps, protecting health data privacy with the My Health, My Data Act, and advancing science-based climate action as well. Senator Slatter, it is really our pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for taking time and joining us.
Thank you for inviting me. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you. So we'll start with, because you have a lot of healthcare background.
Sure.
How does your experience in healthcare and science influence your approach to policy and decision making?
Wow, that's a great question. Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction and for this podcast and the opportunity to speak with you today. When I first started running for office, I felt that the healthcare part or the science part of my background was more about being solutions oriented, being analytical, asking questions, being thoughtful and technical, and bringing another voice to government, because we don't have a lot of healthcare professionals or scientists in government.
Definitely.
And so that was my first impression of government and what I used to talk about.
Nice.
As I've been in office for a while now, I realized that my training in the hospital with patient care has been a really good training ground for being in politics. Because I don't know if there's a lot of people come to you with a lot of issues, concerns, and sometimes they're very emotional.
Absolutely.
And I thought maybe I can't handle that as a politician because it's not easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't want to be in politics because of that.
Yeah.
But I realized that being in healthcare has helped prepare me a little bit for that. Because if you can imagine when you're not feeling well, when you're feeling sick, you're kind of irritated. You're not really happy. So when you go see a doctor or you see your pharmacist or you see somebody in healthcare, you're not going there in the very best state of mind always, right? You want help, you're in pain, something's happening. And when we're trained to see through that pain to the problem, to try to solve it, to try to be with that person in the space that they are. At least the best clinicians I know do that. And so it's really helped me when people are irritated for me to say, okay, there's something underneath that. And as a person in government or in public service, maybe I can sort of sit where they are to better understand what the problem is and if government can play a role.
Great.
Or public service or person can play a role in their pain and in solving that problem.
Great, thank you. So moving on, you have a career across healthcare, Bellevue City Council, Washington State Board of Pharmacy, and the public service now. So it reflects a steady growth. And what has kept you motivated and consistently able to serve? Any success mantra?
Sure. I think when I tell people, people ask me about what it's like to be in office and why somebody would choose politics, because there's a lot of different roles you can play. In public service, I was in healthcare. That's service, right? That's public service. I think you have to have a mission, in your heart. There has to be some reason that drives you. And one of the things that I care about is a future generation, that they have a better life, that we can build a better earth and a better planet and a better society. But for me personally, government plays an important role. I believe in government. So I tell the story of when I was at the Upjohn Company. I was working in a company in biotech, and my son was born. This was in 93. President Clinton, I believe, was president at the time. They passed the Federal Family and Medical Leave Act. That's the federal one. We have a Paid Family Leave Act here in Washington State, but federally,
Wow.
there is one. And if companies subscribe to it, you can get 8 weeks paid leave and up to 21 weeks unpaid leave, at least at that time. And so we saved money. My son was born. He was small and he needed more care. I wanted to breastfeed him. I didn't really want to do it in the company. The resources were not the same at that time as they might be now.
Yeah.
And so I took that 21 weeks. I was grateful to be able to do that.
Nice.
And I went back to work. I got my job back.
Nice.
Because of this law.
Nice.
And I went to work in a different position, which I wanted, which is in clinical research, and helped to design and develop studies for a particular antibiotic. And this antibiotic was so amazing that it could actually treat the most difficult infections that no other antibiotics had treated at the time for gram-positive. So flesh-eating bacteria, I don't know if you've heard of that, but it saved thousands of lives. It was a really wonderful achievement for the company, and I was really proud to be part of it. 20 years later, my father, he was diagnosed with cancer. They took out some of the cancer, and he had a terrible infection. And the only antibiotic that really worked was the drug that I had worked on.
Oh my God. Okay,
and I remember sitting beside his bedside, looking up at the IV bag and seeing linezolid, the drug that I had worked on. And it just struck me at the time how powerful that was. The fact that I could stay home with my son and give him a strong start to life and get my job back. That's economic security for a woman, for a family, not any job, but a job I'm trained to do. And that I could use that job to develop something great and amazing that actually impacted my father 20 years later. I believe that's the power of government, that government policy can help people to achieve their full potential in their life. And that's why I do what I do every day. That's why I get up and go to work. And that's why I want to work on policies that do that.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing a personal story too. That's really, I think a lot of times, a lot of political leaders come into, because they have personal story, they wanted to change something. So that's
right. It has to, because it's a lot of work. It's not always a lot of thanks. And sometimes you're navigating really difficult spaces. So you have to really want to do it.
Yeah.
And it has to be meaningful. And you have to feel that, I believe you have to feel like you can make a difference, that you can make a difference in the world and in people's lives and in my son's life and my future generations.
Yeah, nice, great. As a woman leading in multiple careers, have you come across an experience that made you reflect upon the role of gender equity in the workplace? If so, then how did you navigate those experiences?
Yes, I have. I think it's very important that there be gender equity and equality in the world. And I have been part of the Center for Women and Democracy, where we've traveled to different countries to actually experience positive movements in that space. We've been to Morocco, I've been to Iceland. Iceland has actually got the highest level of gender equity in the world. And so I've learned a lot from those experiences. But personally, working in the corporate industry and biotech, I absolutely had the experience where I was paid much less than one of my coworkers. And he approached me and said, he's a good friend, we work together as a team. And he said, Vandana, how much do you make? And I said, well, I don't really share that information. Of course, that's not usually, people felt uncomfortable doing it. And when I shared, I said, I make $50,000 at that time. This is 20, 30 years ago. And he said, but I make $75,000. I just started before you. And it was because every raise was given to him because he was considered the breadwinner in the family.
Almost 50% higher than 50%. Wow.
Right.
Continue.
So it was a real eye-opener for me because I thought, that's happening to me, and I'm a specialist and I have expertise, and I was, I know that my boss and everybody else thought I did good work and I was given good responsibility, but it really opened my eyes to how do I self-advocate? How do I recognize that that might be happening to others in the world? So on one hand, I'm grateful for the fact that I could be home with my son and do all of that with policy, but I'm also recognizing that the workplace is inherently not seeing women at the same ability level.
Even now, I
as
think some of it
exactly
not
we're
at the
seeing,
same, but still
right,
there is a
it's like
gap.
an 84 cents on the dollar type of a number.
Yes.
And so I do think it's a continuous conversation. I don't think it's something that is, you know, one and done, because you can do, for example, a policy, but we are moving forward.
Good.
We start to see more women in
Yeah,
public
especially
office,
in Washington State, we have more,
right?
isn't it? I mean,
Yep.
yeah.
More leaders. You see a fight for, you know, reproductive rights and choice, so people can make their own healthcare decisions. You see that, you know, we had paid family leave to recognize the incredible work moms do and families do and taking care of their children and feeling they can take care of their elders as well. A lot of times, and you know, we hear about the sandwich generation, women who are taking care of elders and taking care of children and working.
Absolutely.
You know, we have a really important need in our society to recognize everybody who contributes. And personally, I feel like we all should feel like we can fully contribute to our community and our society and our economy.
Yeah, I mean, the women has the soft power. They enable the communities, and absolutely, it's everything we do. It's half.
100%.
Yeah, there is absolutely.
And
no
we are
way.
like over 50% of the population.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when you think about political power, you think about, you know, social power, and, you know, so many studies, right, that show that when women are in the boardroom, for example, much more sustainable decisions or more profitable decisions are often made.
Yeah. I go
yeah. No, it's great.
Whenever I go to a room, whether a non-profit or anything, I usually look at it. Okay, how many we have? Do we have equal representation? Sometimes we don't. But now, occasionally, sometimes I see more women. I'm like, okay, this is good.
It helps. It helps you feel like more comfortable in that space.
Exactly. So
I love that you do that. Thank you. That means that you're thinking as an ally. And it's funny because when I was on the Bellevue City Council, there was an article that came out about the Obama administration. And women were saying that in rooms, a lot of times, I know a lot of women experience this, where you're in a room and you have an idea and you say the idea and no one pays any attention. No one acknowledges it. But then a man will say the same idea and everyone's like, oh, that's such a great idea. We should do that. And so many women have experienced that. And so we were talking about it on city council with two other council members who are women. And we were noticing that sometimes the council, when we asked a question, would ignore the question or would move on quickly. And that never seemed to happen to the male members of the council or other council members. So we read this article of the Obama administration where women amplified each other, or they had allies like you to amplify their question. And so we said, let's try it. So, and we didn't all agree with each other. Last three council members, we're colleagues, but we didn't always agree with each other, but we agreed to amplify each other. So we tried it at the next meeting where, you know, one of the council members, she said she had a question, she raised it, and predictably, the question was moved off and they were going to move to the next topic. And I said, I'd actually like to hear the answer to that question. Could we just go back and hear that question again and discuss it for a second? And then they did that for me. And the interesting thing is that the other council members didn't seem to notice. Like, it wasn't like an intentional thing either side, but it was very powerful. So I think that there's other tools that we could use, but again, that was another experience.
I have a very interesting question here.
Yeah.
During my campaign last year, I met a pastor. She's from Bothell. I don't want to give the details total. She's probably 60 plus woman. She's an American. And she said, Prasad, America is not ready for a woman president. I was like, really? Because I have a daughter. I mean, it's not about my daughter.
Sure, absolutely.
What's
what
your
do we
comment?
Tell our daughters?
Yeah. What's your comment at high level?
I think we can't afford not to have one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Honestly, I think we're the most ready. Now, whether or not the voters are ready, that's what I think
that's what she meant, I think.
From, right?
Yeah,
and we've seen it, right, with Kamala Harris, with Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
We've certainly seen that, sadly.
Yeah.
And so many other countries around the world have had women presidents and are continuing to show leadership at the highest levels of government. And so Yeah, I think that there is a certain belief system that may be out there amongst
But we should
people,
change
but
it. We all
we
should change it. We
and
must change
for
it.
our daughters,
Yes,
absolutely,
absolutely.
and
I
for
mean,
everyone, because
for
it will be
everyone.
powerful
It's
for
not about
everyone.
daughters. It's about my wife or
Certainly.
every woman on the earth, right? So
Yeah.
we need to make. We are a number one country in the
Right.
world. We should make a statement. We must make a statement.
I'm an optimist. I think
Absolutely.
that that's the only option.
Yeah, I didn't
but,
feel when she said urban. Okay, that stuck with
but it must
me.
have been a little hard to hear.
Yeah, I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. And now another important question. You're an Indian American and your LD 48 has very almost 40% foreign born.
45. Yeah.
Almost half of the
Yeah.
population or immigrants are foreign born and very diverse communities. So from your experience, what practical steps can local leaders take to ensure residents from all backgrounds feel heard, represented, and included in the civic life?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I know that the way I talk about it is when I first ran for office, I had to decide what I was going to put on my sign. You know, the political signs that you put out, many consultants will tell you they're not actually that useful for getting votes necessarily, but certainly for name recognition, they can be useful.
They need to know who is running. Who is running?
And my first name is Vandana, and my last name is Slatter. It took my husband's name. And so it's kind of an unusual combination. And when I was in work, people would call me Van because it was so much easier, or Vandana, than Vandana. And I didn't really correct them because all my life I had grown up with that. And so then a guy came and worked with us and his name was Van. So it got really confusing because we were both on the phones and one was Van, one was Van. So I said, well, actually, my name isn't really Van. It's Vandana. So you could call me Vaughn. So I went with Vaughn for a number of years.
But still it is a little confusing. Yeah.
Right. And then my husband actually knows me as Van originally.
Okay.
So then when my sign came out, I had kind of what I call my Barry Barack moment. And I decided to use Vandana.
Wow.
Okay, so to answer your question, so there were people in my district who had never voted, Indian families who had never voted. They lived there for 12, 15 years or more, and they had never voted. But when they saw the name on the sign, Vandana, as you know, in Sanskrit, means prayer, salute. And for them, it was very meaningful.
Yeah.
And they felt like they were seeing that there's somebody that they could relate to.
Nice.
And I didn't grow up in India. But because I have the name and because, I come from that culture.
But your parents are...
Yeah. So one thing I would say, and now parents tell their daughters, I hope you can, they look, if they want to be in politics, I hope you can be like Vandana or like other elected officials who are from other cultures, right?
Yeah.
They can tell their daughters that. So I think representation is a very important piece, number one. And not being afraid of that representation, being proud of it, and walking into the community with your full authenticity is very powerful and important. And it brings people to the process that normally would not be there. And I think sitting at the table where decisions are made, helps also to engage the community. Because when we have a policy or something that can impact a lot of diverse groups in our community, and you have connection with those diverse groups, and you have to make those connections, then I can say, hey, what do you think about this policy? How will it impact you? And I can bring that back to the table. So it is it's a two-way engagement, and it's also being present in the community, going to festivals, going to community events, showing up, answering the hard questions, being in spaces where people see you and feel like you're really listening to them. My community, I'm very proud of my community. I love my community, and it's the reason I'm here. Because they've supported me and they show up for me, and I try really, really hard to show up for them.
Great. Now, everybody is thinking about AI, and we have a lot of tech professionals. And what do you think from your perspective? How can AI strengthen the healthcare innovation while also addressing concerns around privacy and equity and patient trust?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Thank you for the balanced way that you asked it, right? Because I think that's the question of our day, is how do we advance technology without harming our human values, right? And our ability to have privacy and ethics. And so AI is very, very valuable in the healthcare space, particularly in drug development, we can do a lot of work with AI to be able to deliver really targeted therapeutics.
Nice.
And it's very powerful, and it can save incredible lives and change lives.
Excellent.
So from that standpoint, it has a great deal of value. When I answer questions about privacy, I usually tell the story of when I got the chance to visit MIT. I was on a delegation learning about technology.
Right.
And the professors there told me about the study for facial recognition technologies. They did a study, and Serena Williams, the great tennis player, was seen as a man by the early facial recognition technologies.
Wow.
And one of the reasons is because the people who were coding that technology were not so diverse in their experience, or they didn't necessarily think about that, right? So I think it's very important, if we're going to use AI, that we have people who are developing AI with broad and diverse sets of experiences, and those who value certain things, right? So that the technology is built with the human condition, values, ethics, and diversity in mind.
Sure.
So that's one of the reasons why I have advocated in higher education for more women, more people of color, more low-income families, those with a lot more diversity upstream, and computer scientists, and those in the level of computer science. So that's one way to approach that. The second way is that government plays a role in regulation, but we've struggled with AI because if you think about the World Wide Web, we've had several generations to get used to the internet.
Right.
And we sort of manage that, right? Like there are risks in the internet, but, and so AI has been, exponentially, logarithmically faster. So that now instead of 2 generations to get used to new technology, it's like 8 months and maybe even less. And so that requires some moments where we have a lot of times we need a human in the loop. We need to have some oversight by a human, because we know that there are flaws, there's things that are being worked through.
Absolutely.
And that can truly impact people's privacy. I mean, if AI is choosing a resume for jobs, imagine that. If AI is choosing who to give healthcare to,
sure,
who to pay for their healthcare, prior authorization in healthcare, for example. We did a bill that talked about that. We did a bill last year that said that cannot use the term nurse, that they cannot be called a nurse. It cannot be called a nurse, that only a human can be called a nurse. That was a very interesting bill. And I believe it passed with a lot of support from all sides. So I think that we have a lot of questions. Different states and places have thrown lots of different regulation at AI, which is very important.
Sure.
Washington State has taken a slightly different perspective to have a task force, and then sort of directing where some of the legislation should go.
Nice.
And we also have really amazing experts in our caucus that worry about behavioral health and K-12 education. So we did bills on chatbots, on whether we should have cell phones in schools, and likeness types of policies. That type of thing that we're, so for safety.
Nice.
So I think we have to continue doing that, but it's a work in progress, honestly.
Absolutely. I know there are a lot of scary things. So
yeah, I don't think we should be afraid of it.
Right.
At the same time,
thank you for saying it.
Right. But I feel like I always felt technology should be used as a force for good. I come from the biotech industry. I believe that.
Yeah.
But I also think that we have to be very balanced in the way we do that.
Great. Now I have a complicated question.
Okay.
LD 40th district, it has a lot of entrepreneurs, high-end professionals or whatnot. How do you balance 2 concerns at once, making Washington tax system fairer while also keeping high-earning professionals, entrepreneurs, innovators stay and invested in our state?
What a great question, and one that's very relevant.
Yes,
For the times, as you know, we passed the millionaires tax. I was very heavily in support of that, and obviously there is always
pros and cons. Sometimes even at home, when we do some decisions, there is always pros and cons. But go ahead.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think that we have a lot of really. I'll give you an example. I went to Salesforce a few years ago. I was invited to come and answer questions by the Salesforce population, workers, tech workers. So this wasn't the CEOs and all of that. This is actual people who work there. And I was really excited. So I was reading up on data privacy and all the technology types of questions that they might ask me. And when I got there, the questions that they were asking me was about affordable housing, transportation, education, access, homelessness,
Sure.
affordability,
Yeah.
utilities, like all those things.
Yeah.
So when I really think about it, and I think about my district,
Great.
there are people who care deeply about what we invest in with our tax dollars. I do have people who are very wealthy who are not happy with the tax policy at times, or they are deeply concerned about the fact that our budget might not be being used as wisely, which I think is the best way, but also they don't necessarily want to pay into a budget when they can't see where all of that is being used. But when I ask them where they want to spend that money or invest in that money, that's a much more complex conversation, and it's not one that they can easily answer, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
I think that we passed the capital gains tax not long ago, and that was a pretty good number of percentage that it passed by.
Sure.
And one of the reasons I think it was successful, it's 9.9% on a capital gains, that because we, in the language, we said we're going to take those dollars and we're going to put them into education. So I think the most successful way to talk to people who are entrepreneurs or analytical is to inform them fully about what is the tax, where is it coming from, what is the misinformation around this tax, be informed, and then to talk about what are we going to do with those dollars and get their input as to how that will work. Because ultimately, if you want to build a business and you go to a country like maybe Somalia or another country somewhere in the world that is struggling with infrastructure, there are no roads, bridges, police, banks that are regulated, or all of those things. So you can't, the government is a partner in the business that we have right now. If you bring employees here, they've got to have places for their kids to go to school.
Sure.
So we should be investing in those things. We should be investing in childcare. We should be investing in good roads and transportation infrastructure.
Yeah.
All of that.
Yeah.
So when I talk to people, I say, allow me to be complex. I try to complexify simply, because the other piece to your question, and this is a very complicated topic, is that for the last 100 or 200 years, Washington State has paid for all of these things on taxes that have been on sales tax a lot of the time, B&O tax,
Sure,
which does need reform, and property tax. And we didn't have an income tax. So sales tax is mostly on goods, things that you grow, things that you make.
And we don't have income tax too. I mean, I just want
we didn't have income tax, right? Exactly right. And so, but the sales tax is now 40%. Like goods are 40% of our economy. 60% of our economy are services. So digital services, haircut service, all those kinds of things, and we don't tax them the same way. So our economy is growing in a place we don't tax, and it's shrinking in the only place we do tax.
It makes sense, but I did not know.
So so even though the budget is growing, it's because we have so many more needs. Our supply chain needs, our affordability needs, our healthcare needs, all
inflation,
of these needs, and inflation
on top of it.
And Democrats have, we struggle with how to talk about inflation that way, because we do have the solution for it is to invest in really important spaces, right?
Sure.
But if we're not using the tax policy in a way that's modern or that's relevant for our state, then we are going to fall further behind. So people who make the least are paying the most, because they're buying, like if I buy a cup of coffee and I make only a certain amount of money, but someone makes twice the amount of money, that cup of coffee is a smaller percentage of my higher income than it is of my lower income, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely.
So anything that I buy, paying 3 to 4 times more as a low-income person than as a higher-income person. So we're trying to balance that out a little bit.
Good.
Kind of like Warren Buffett said, he doesn't think his secretary or his assistant should pay the same tax rate as a higher tax rate than him.
Very good. I'm hoping our listeners will get more information from you.
That's how I understand it.
Absolutely.
And I am obviously, if I need to be corrected, I will, but that is how I understand it right now. That's why you hear about regressive tax code. That's why you hear about rebalancing, or the tax code and making it less upside down.
Great. Now let's get into the elections.
Okay.
You have contested elections race approximately 5 times. Is that right?
Approximately, I would say, if you include city council.
Yeah,
and 2 city council races. I lost my first one.
Oh. Okay, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. And you did 4 times for the House Rep and last time for the Senate.
Mhm.
So now you're up for election. What are some of the personal challenges
Mhm.
elected officials face during the campaigns?
Yeah, it's a really good question. There's multiple, obviously. It's hard to raise money, but you need money to run a
Yeah,
campaign.
I kind of
You
understood
can
too.
relate to
Right, of
that.
course,
I
100%.
found that to be hard. I think there's some people that are
Yes.
really, good at that or can, but it took me a while to figure out how to
Sure.
do it. I mean, I come from an immigrant family. My parents were immigrants. I am an immigrant. And, also people that I could call if they came from India, for example. Some felt that there was some corruption in government there, so they weren't really sure how much they wanted to invest in government at all.
Sure.
In addition, a lot of people were sending some money back home for their family, so they didn't have a lot to give. And that type of understanding was not well known
Sure.
in the consultant world or the political world at the time. I didn't really even realize until I was, thinking about it. And so when you are a diverse candidate, sometimes that can be a really big challenge because you're, they ask you to call your family and your friends and you're thinking, I don't know if I can do that. Like that would be really, it's a hard ask. So you have to learn how to do that. I think that's a challenge that people do understand but aren't really in it all the time.
Yeah.
The other place is that it's lonely. You see in movies, right? There's all these teams and everybody's doing all this stuff and the candidates kind of, working with this huge team. And it's actually not like that. It's actually you're kind of filling out these questionnaires at 3:00 in the morning.
Not for the city level or the level.
Yeah, your poor family is basically your team, and sometimes they can only handle it so much, right? And you have to go to a lot of events, and so it's a lot of effort that way. So you have to, like I said, you have to have that fire, that passion to do it. So I think those are a couple of the challenges that I've seen, if that's what you're asking.
Great, absolutely. Yeah, definitely, I can relate as well.
I mean, it's like, and I would just if I can say, it's you fight a war to serve. If you think about it, so when people are, and you're not really fighting the person, but you're trying to get your voice heard in a particular point of view.
Yeah.
I think the one challenge I had is that you're having a lot of support from the Democrats and from other entities that you hope to get their support or their endorsement. So you have to figure out, what do I stand for? Who am I? And finding that through line along while you're talking with people and really believing in where you stand and that authenticity, that has helped me feel like whenever I'm out there campaigning, that whether you vote for me or not, I am who I am.
Excellent.
And that's also can be hard if you're like trying to meet the party's goals and try to figure out where you stand on some issues. And I feel like luckily I agree with a lot of the party's platform and I'm all in, but at the same time, where's my voice? Who am I? What do I bring to the story? And I think that's something that we constantly think about as elected leaders.
When it comes to fights, sometimes depending upon your opponent, but it could be dirty fights or social media or whatnot,
right, and
you have to embrace
somebody who might actually be on the same side as you in a lot of things, but not on something else. So who are you, right? And that's something that is a continual conversation.
And continuing that,
who am I?
Who are the people in your life who have quietly or loudly supported you behind the scenes, and how have they helped you along the way?
Yeah, I mean, I could not be in this position, done any of it without my husband and my son in my corner.
Just like my wife.
Yeah, I know, right? Like how they're the silent supporters, and they're not always. It's a sacrifice at some level for family, and so all of us are in public service, whether we know it or not, right? And I'm grateful.
Great. So, on a lighter note, what is the one part of public service that you truly enjoy, and what is one harsh truth about public life that people may not always see?
Wow. I mean, like I said, I love my community. I'm happiest when I'm in my community, when I'm meeting people, and I feel very supported, and I feel like there are people who are transparent with me about what their concerns are. That is the best part. And the ability to actually take some of their concerns and try to translate it into policy is the challenge and the fun of the work. And I don't know. I mean, a harsh truth is that I worry about apathy. I worry about cynicism at a time and hopelessness.
Yeah.
And I believe that hope is really important. That's the outcome I
Yeah.
want to achieve, that people will have hope, that ultimately we live in a time of income inequality in the sense that we worry about if our children will have the same opportunities and the same success that we've had in our generation. And we are worried about, what's going to happen with affordability, with the future of politics right now in this country. And I feel like apathy is what people who are interested in beating that want you to feel. And ultimately, outcome I'm looking for is that we do engage. That cynicism is not is sort of like bruised hope. And so I think we need to find hope and bring ourselves, come together. And where I find that is when a small group of people come together in the community and have a cup of coffee and might agree or disagree, but we're all there having that conversation. Ultimately, I think that's the fire, right? That will keep things moving forward. It isn't all the big stuff. It isn't all this media. It's what we do with our neighbor. I have a neighbor who's a Republican who disagrees with me, but we always say hi to each other. He helped take care of my mom one day. He helped me run for a nonpartisan race at one point. I care about his wife and, all of that. And I think that ultimately that's where true community and true belonging for people happen. If we can hold on to that, if we can see each other, we're going to build a better community and a better society and a better government.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we shouldn't be looking at what party somebody belongs. Even at our homes, majority of the times, maybe spouses.
I don't even know in some cases what some of my neighbors are. I think.
Right, exactly. But we are representing, and we should serve. We should serve. Yeah.
I mean, I'm hoping that they are they're with me, but I think that we are. Because at this time in our country, I do think there's a political division. And the division is hard. But then look at the World Cup, right? What we had with the World Cup and how everybody came together with sports to support, the USA and to support this incredible event. And that's kind of the beauty of community. So I would say that's how we break the division, by being who we are, being Americans, being people in our society, being neighbors, being kind to one another, and thinking about what our kids will experience going forward.
We can take a pause. So now, related note, you already touched upon it. For our Think Practical audience, we are at a times we are heavily divided. Are there any other things that you can think of how we can unite our communities? Any other thoughts, ideas, even the listeners that are listening?
Yeah.
Because at our homes, sometimes kids may be Republicans, parents may be Democrats, or vice versa. Even the wife may be Democrat, husband may be Republican.
Oh, yes.
There are a lot of tough conversations. It's not about just politics.
No.
What are the ways that we can be united?
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think the sports,
Definitely.
that's been a really great uniter lately for all of us, right? And so I think leaning into that and being excited about that, I think it's just being in community. Like I go to community events. I went to 2 parades on July 4th. Nice. How fun was that? And there was it was just being with each other. Everybody comes and we appreciate, the weather. We appreciate each other. And the fact that, that was in a way a political event, a 250th anniversary, right, of our independence. And yet so many people from all walks of life showed up. So I think that if we're just in our homes by ourselves with the same people and we're on social media only, then I think that we lose a little bit of that. So being out and about, being with people has been, I think, really powerful. And there might be areas you don't want to go or you don't want to connect with, but at the end of the day, I feel like that's where we're truly going to make a difference. And ultimately, hopefully, that division will recede.
Great. Yeah, definitely the events, entertainment, all this can bring different diversity
together.
Yeah,
we have a lot more in common than we have that are different. We're all humans.
That's how I think too.
At the end of the day,
we can be united on many common grounds.
Right.
There are many things we share. This it doesn't matter who we are, the home or the
Yeah.
school or
We
the
share the same planet,
infrastructure
same
of the
air.
plant. Yeah, I
We
mean,
care about our children's future. All
we
of
breathe the
that.
same. We breathe the same air, water, or
Yeah.
whatnot. Or there are many
Yeah.
things we share.
There's a
similar.
lot of conversation that I think people can agree to disagree. When that can happen, that'd be great. But at the time, sometimes that's not easy to do. It's not possible. But maybe you can find something that you do have something that you share with someone, and that's one way to start the dialogue or start the relationship.
So, one quick question on the senior citizens. Do you see any gaps in the long-term care for senior citizens or anything?
Yeah, I mean, we have a real, I mean, there is people call it the silver tsunami. There's a growing number of people who are aging in our society, and we don't have a lot of people. The average amount of retirement income is very low. It might even be in the hundreds of dollars. So if people get sick or they're on their own, there's not a lot of options for them. And so that's why we passed the Washington Cares Act.
Okay.
It was controversial for people to decide if they wanted to pay into that because it was going to take a portion of their paycheck.
Yeah.
But that was only about $36,000. I believe it's already started now, but at $36,000, and it wasn't intended to be long-term care. It was intended that you could stay in your home and get meals delivered or get like a handicap ramp. So that amount of money, just so that you could stay in your home, because a lot of people cannot afford going to long-term care. But at least something the government could do to allow people to remain where they were. So that was a very powerful and difficult to explain. Like, it happened during COVID. And so it was really interesting because all of the information about it was supposed to come out. And when COVID happened, the contracts with the communication agencies were not fulfilled easily because of COVID. So information was not rolled out at the rate that it was intended to be rolled out. That's what I learned.
Got it.
And so I ended up getting some briefings from the agency, and they had slides that were really excellent. And so I would send those to my constituents who were very upset about it. So I think getting a little bit more information about what government can do for you, but also really preparing yourself for the future, because, you know, all of us do get older, and there probably can be some aging in place and some, you know, health issues. And making sure people are aware of that is going to be really important, because we do have a lot of seniors and they vote as well. And they also have really strong needs. So I think we have to pay attention to that population and also to our own family and our own health.
Great. So first of all, happy July 4th. And
July 4th.
And we celebrated now 250th Independence Day. And I'm sure you are hopeful with all this technology and efficiency and all. We're all here with the challenges. I'm sure we can embrace.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you so much for your time, Senator Slatter. I learned a lot from you. You have a passion and perseverance for the people, and you continue to serve helping your constituents. It's great to see a lot of experience, a lot of expertise. We are blessed to have you as a senator for Washington State. I'm sure our listeners, please do comment and ask any questions if you have it. So yeah, let's think practical for our communities, make a stronger communities and a stronger country. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.